Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, welcome in. If you have been following me for a while, welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about death. And you know, death is a interesting topic because everybody has their own perception and idea of what death looks like to them. Death can affect you in many different ways, and I don't really think there's anything that can prepare us for it. No matter how much we know it's coming. In some instances we know that it's coming for some people, and then in some instances we don't know, and it's just that unexpected death. So it's like, how do you navigate through dealing with that? It's difficult either way, because nobody ever wants to lose anyone. Nobody wants to let go, and it can be very difficult. And so today I just wanted to focus the topic on that, and I wanted to just start by sharing my experience with it that just recently happened. So back in the beginning of this year, one of my mom's really good friends died. And when that happened, it really affected me. And I was just sitting there, really trying to figure out why. Because, I didn't really know that person like that. Like, she came around, she was a part of our family. Like, we just bring any and everybody a part of our family. But, I was trying to figure out, why did this person who, I knew but really didn't know, have so much effect on afterwards. It just had a really big effect on me, and I just didn't know how to process it. And so I really had to dive in and dig deep, because I learned some things. So after discovering, I'm like, this is really different, because I was really going through it. To be honest, I was just having a really hard time sleeping at night. I didn't want to be by myself for a while, and I was just having constant torment in my mind almost. And it was just fear just pouring in. And I was really trying to figure out why this was happening, because I'm like, what is this? And then I had people around me saying, just think positive. She went to be with the Lord and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, I get that. But my reality is that I'm feeling very down and very sad and very fearful, because yes, we do have hope and we do have faith in knowing that when people die, that they will be with the Lord. And that's a great hope and feeling to have, that we all should have and continue to have, no matter what. But what do you do when you're faced with the reality emotions? Because we have two types of emotions. There's faith emotions, and then there's reality emotions. And so we a lot of times we end up exercising that faith emotion. But when do we really sit down and deal with that reality emotion? Because reality is, I'm sad. Reality is, I'm angry. Reality is, I am really trying to figure out how to process this. And I think this is a very important topic, because yes, it's very good to exercise faith, but what do we do when that reality hits? What do we do when we're by ourselves and everything just starts crashing down? All the memories, all of the moments shared with that person. What do we do when we're faced to sit and deal with reality? And it really sucks. It really sucks, and it's really sad. And during the beginning of the year, when this happened, I was faced with the reality. And reality was that I never dealt with the previous deaths that happened before this. And so when I was faced with reality, it hit me super hard, because I was never prepared. I never took the time to deal with it. I only dealt with that faith. I only dealt with that faith you know, thinking, but I never dealt with that reality. And so this time I had to sit down and deal with that reality. And it was very hard, just constantly crying and just being terrified, because when I faced the reality, it was deep, it was intense, it was sad, it made me fearful, like it was a lot. But during that process, I really learned a lot about why it's so important to deal with it, because for so long, death, I became numb to it, and I became shut off to it. Because I remember back when when I started getting older, it's like when you're younger, you don't really have to deal with stuff like that. It's like, people die, and it's like, okay, they're dead. They're dead, It's a part of life. But that younger mind, you don't really think about all the emotions and stuff like that. At least for me, like, I just wasn't as attached. And it wasn't until I got older where I started to realize that this really is something. This really affects me. And I really had to figure out how to deal with this, because if I don't, I don't know if I can handle this, And so just diving in deep, I began to go back into my past. I began to figure out all the times where I saw death, but I never dealt with it. And so because I never dealt with it, this time it dealt with me. And so when I just say, like, it's very important to deal with your stuff, because if not, it will deal with you. And when it deals with you, it's a whole nother world and light, and it's just a whole different challenge to overcome. And so this time it dealt with me, and what it did was really open my mind to see something different. Because when in the past I had a traumatic experience with death. I'm not really going to go into it, but it was just very traumatic. And after that, I was just done. I was like, I'm not going to funerals. Somebody, like my papa died, and I was just like, okay. Like, I didn't want to, they were like, oh, you can go see the body and all that. I'm good. I just wanted to stay far away, because no. Like, what I saw, my reality, what I saw at that point totally turned me off. So it didn't even allow me to see the faith aspect in it, even though people wanted me to see it. And so when I realized that I didn't deal with that, my thing was, if you don't think about it, if you don't talk about it, if you don't remember it, it never happened. Or you'll just get through it. It doesn't have to be that bad. And so January comes, and it all came crashing down on me, and I said, wow, okay, so this is my reality now. I chose not to deal with the things that happened to me in dealing with death. And so now, right now, it just came crashing down. And so, it was very difficult. And, to think back to the beginning of this year, to think that I would have got out of that, it was just like constant, just like my mind was just being tormented, because every thought and fear about it just came rushing back. And no matter how hard I tried to avoid it, no matter how hard I tried to forget about it, it was still there. Because why? I never dealt with it. And so, this year really changed my perspective on death, because I had to realize that I can't keep on running away from it. I had to figure out what death was for me, and what it looked like to me, what it felt like to me, and what I really thought about it. And I had to take away all of what I've been told, or not necessarily take it away, but rethink it. Because I realized that what I once thought it was, I realized that it wasn't dealing. I needed to figure out how to deal with my reality. And then once I figure out how to deal with my reality, then I could, continue to look at it with faith. And so once I did that, it totally changed my perspective. It totally freed my mind. And that's when the healing started to happen. And I think that, that was just a significant point in my life where it switched. It finally switched for me, and I could look at death as a good thing, more of a good thing rather than such a bad thing. And so what I had to do was really dig deep within myself. I said, okay, Alana, why do you feel this way? What makes you fear it? What makes you so sad about it? What makes you angry about it? And so I began to write. I began to write all my thoughts. I began to write all my fears. I began to write every single thing that I thought about death, whether good or bad. I know once I started that process, it just started freeing me up, and I was like, wow, okay. And then in between then, I would cry it out. Because why? Crying, it brings healing as well. So not only am I getting those thoughts out of my head, but I'm also, emotionally releasing them so that I can, begin to get free from those things. And so, I did that, and then, I summed up all those negative thoughts. And then what I did was, I looked in my Bible, and I read some things about death, and I read what happens after death, and I saw all the good things that it showed, and that it showed that it wasn't the end, and that you will be safe, you will be happy, and all these good things that the faith aspects shows us. So once I got to deal with my reality, I then got to tap into my faith aspect, and that began to show me so much. And so it took a couple of weeks and months, well, I think a couple of months, and I finally began to get free, and I finally began to embrace the freedom that God ultimately wants us to have, and thinking about death, because it doesn't, reality is death sucks. It sucks in the aspect of thinking about it, but in the reality aspect, but in the faith aspect, it's so freeing. It's just an amazing, it's almost like a transformation that happens. You're leaving one life and going to another, and it's so rewarding to know that God has somewhere better for you, and just a place where you'll be so free, so safe, so loved. And no more sickness, no more diseases, no worries anymore. You'll just be safe in his arms, and ultimately, that's what we want to happen. But I feel like in order for us to be able to fully be able to grasp the faith aspect, we do have to deal with our reality. And so it takes a long time. Everybody grieves differently, and I can't tell you how to feel about death, just like you can tell me how to feel about it. But we can do things that can help us make it a little bit better. And sometimes it just feels so devastating, and it feels like the end, and it's just a lot. And for me, I know it was a lot, but I know that there is freedom in it, and I'm so glad I got to experience that freedom. So I really encourage you to, if you're one of those that just like to act like things never happened, or just shove down your emotions, or to just put it to the side, I really encourage you to start rethinking the stance that you have for death. And I encourage you to start thinking differently about it, because I thought that worked for me. I thought that if I shoved it down, if I didn't deal with it, and if I just tried to act like everything was okay, that it was gonna work. And I was so stuck on it was gonna work, because when I tried to deal with it, it didn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control the situation in my life, and I'm going to, do it on my own. And, this year really had to be like, oh, you really think you're going, well, not this year. God really had to check me and be like, oh, okay, so you think you're going to deal with it yourself? All right, bet. So let me throw this in the loop and see how you do with it. But it was so amazing, and I thank God that he did that, because I needed to deal with it. I needed to stop acting like it didn't hurt. I needed to stop acting like it didn't affect me. I needed to stop acting like my emotions didn't matter. And I needed to realize that I was only holding myself back because I chose not to deal with what I needed to deal with. And so once I realized that, I realized that, freedom is there, and it's so important to just deal with your emotions when you have the chance before they try to deal with you. Because when they try to deal with you, whew, that's a different story. And take it for somebody my emotions really been dealing with me this year, and it hasn't been fun. It hasn't been, pretty, but it's been such a beautiful outcome, and that's what I'm really grateful for. So, death is different. Death is it's very interesting. But just know that there is hope in being free from feeling like you cannot make it through that grief stage and that heavy stage, because it's freedom there. And I just encourage you to just let it go and to really take the time to process it and figure out what it means to you. If you need help, you can, therapy is available. Because sometimes it goes so deep that you can't just deal with it by yourself, and that's okay. You have to realize, like, you have to get help. You have to face it. You have to, dive deep into it, because if not, it will deal with you. It will face you, and some outcomes is not the best. Some people, it faces them so hard, it deals with them so hard, where they just give up on life, where they just go into a deep depression, where they just fall so deep down, and then they just feel like death is the only option for them at that point. And it's very sad, because we have so much life to live, we have so much to accomplish, and we can't let death keep us down. We can't let death hold us in bondage anymore, because we deserve to be free in that area. And so yeah, this subject, it's never going, death is never, I feel like, the reality aspect, it's never going to get to 100% where we feel really good about it, because we're humans. We have emotions, and we feel like, losing someone that you've grown up with or been with forever. And you have to know that it's a lot to deal with, and it can feel like it's never going to end. And that's why it's important. We just really have to start dealing with the emotions that come with death. And so I always am an advocate for therapy, but reach out to people and know that people grieve and deal with death differently. And so we can only, like, I can sit here and only encourage you to look at it differently, and to just show you something different, but it's really up to you to figure out what you're going to do moving forward. But I do know, coming from someone who death was a very difficult subject and thing for me to deal with, I can say that there is freedom that you can experience. I experienced so much freedom, once I finally dealt with it, and once I finally wrote things down, once I finally, prayed about it, once I finally read the Bible for myself about it, once I finally asked other people about it, it finally there was a switch in me that happened, that it allowed me to be able to look at it differently and deal with it differently. So I really encourage you to, you know, think about this video. Think about how you deal with death. Think about if how you deal with death is it in a healthy way or unhealthy way? Because sometimes we can deal with it healthy, and then sometimes we can deal with it in an unhealthy way. So really figure out what that looks like for you. And if you realize that it's unhealthy, you know, start taking the steps to, you know, figure out how to make it healthy. And you can use some of the tips that I just shared in this video, you know, writing things down, praying, going to therapy and all that stuff, because you know you have to see and find what works best for you. But just know that there is freedom in our thinking of death, and that you can be free from that grief, you can be free from that burden and heaviness. And it doesn't have to, you know, stay stuffed down. It doesn't have to be buried down. You don't have to continue to bury your feelings down. You can experience freedom just like I have, and I really encourage you to do that. All right, you guys, I really thank you for being here. You know, this topic is very different, and it's very personal for different reasons, because it's a sensitive topic. And so, you know, if you have any questions or comments about anything that I just spoke, please feel free to put them down below. And you know, just know that reality may suck, but the faith aspect is beautiful and glorious at the end of the day. So if you're dealing with death right now, just know that I'm praying for you, and that I really hope that you can find freedom just like I did. All right, you guys, I thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.